In this video, I'll be showing you how I installed a Speedmaster intake manifold into my Pontiac Firebird Formula V8. It's an LS1 motor. It's a lot of fun. I hope you have fun watching. This is a knockoff Speedmaster qualifier intake manifold for LS motors. A lot of people say bad things about it, but I really like it. One reason is because I think it looks awesome, but also I saw that they were dynoed and they did pretty good numbers on the dyno machine as far as horsepower goes. Bad things people say is that it gets hot, heat soaking, but I have a remedy for that. And I think most people just don't like it because it's made in China, but I think it's going to be good for my car since I'm a budget guy, and I also lean more towards looks than most things, but the power gain will be fun too. One reason I got this one is because it still has this opening here, which is where my EGR tubes go into. I'm actually keeping all the EGR stuff on my car. I'm keeping catalytic converters. I'm making it like it could be still made from the factory, sort of. I bought this used from a guy who said all the stock stuff should fit on it. So I'm assuming he meant the fuel rails and fuel injectors and throttle body and everything. I'm getting a new throttle body though. I'm going to get an adapter for that and stuff. I had to find these fittings. I didn't really know what to do there, but I found them, and I don't know if the thread is exactly the right size because I got them in about halfway and they're pretty snug. I might just keep them in there. Same on both sides. This side had a special type of fitting for a plastic clamp thing, but I'm just going to exchange that plastic clamp tube thing with a regular vacuum hose I got right here. I'm thinking this should work. I know that fits on there. I'm hoping this will fit on the other end that we go to. And on the back here, this is where the map sensor goes. I had to research to figure this stuff out, and it really stressed me out for a little bit, but I believe that holds for a screw to hold the map sensor in. I don't know what kind of screw to get there. I don't know if that's really even tapped for a screw. I got a fitting for this. This is where vacuum hoses go. It took me a while to figure out what to get there, but I found it. And here it is. Now I'll go right in there. So the stock manifold has a thing that sticks out here, and basically this is built into that. The two hoses connect to it, and that's where the map sensor sits. But since this is aftermarket, it's a little bit different. Let's figure out some stuff. This looks tapered. Is this tapered? This manifold had some scratches and stuff on it, but it also had a lump right here, which would be like where a logo would go. But what I did was I took my chisel file and I scraped it off. Then I sanded it down and polished it up a little bit. I don't really like name brands and all. I want it to just look smooth and real. I am boring this hole out from 85 millimeters to 92 millimeters. And I am doing it by hand with a Dremel. Why? Because I'm crazy. But most people do know that. Here's a tip. When you're grinding metal or cutting any metal, make sure you lubricate it. Otherwise, it won't cut as good and the metal will melt a little and it'll get stuck on your cutter and it won't work anymore. I was using WD-40 with my Dremel, and I did it for a while, and eventually the lubrication killed my Dremel. But I unplugged it and I cleaned it. I dunked the whole thing in an alcohol solution, and then I let it dry for a couple days, and it works again. One thing I did was I took this bottom panel off of this and I looked inside, and this is casted, and it's not casted the best in the world. So there's a bunch of lumps and bumps and stuff inside there. I was able to get this off, get in there, and grind some of that out with the Dremel. Put this back on with silicone, and then after it dried, I put extra sealing around the edge there. I don't know if that'll do anything or not, but I did it. My heat soaking remedy for this is to lay some heat shield down on the bottom of this to try to help prevent heat from the engine getting into the intake manifold. What I'm also going to do is something that the stock manifolds have, which is these pads. They go right here and they prevent water or whatever from getting in here. If you flip this over, you'll understand there's knock sensors sitting on top of the motor, and a lot of people like to put silicone around the knock sensors or whatever when they put custom manifolds or whatever on. But I'm going to go ahead with the stock idea. Plus, I might do the silicone dealy too. That way, I don't have any problems with my knock sensors, hopefully. I bought these Fel Pro gaskets. They go right there. Yeah, they go this way. But I believe that's the best one you can get for these types of manifolds. These won't work. They're for the stock. This throttle body gasket also won't work because it's for the stock. This one may or may not work. We shall see. I bought new manifold bolts that are shorter than the stock ones because my new manifold doesn't come up as high. It's not as thick, so I worry that the stock bolts wouldn't be able to go in all the way. So I got something a little bit shorter, but they still have about an inch that sticks out the bottom. I should grab to the motor. These are, by the way, 6 millimeters thick times 1 for the thread and 85 millimeters long. This one is. Here's the stock one. This is a protractor, kids. Should I use washers? That looks pretty close. Kind of wish this was flanged. I kind of wish it was a regular bolt too. I'm going to have to find the right Allen thing for that. My stock throttle body right here has a coolant line going through it. Because on one end, comes out right here on the other side. But the aftermarket one does not have those inlets. So I have to bypass the throttle body cooling system. I'll take that tube there, just connect it directly to the other one. This fitting right here, there was a plastic tube connecting from this to this right here, which is the evap module that sends a little bit of evaporated gas from the tank back into the manifold. I'm not going to reuse that plastic thing because this is a special fitting. I'm just going to put a rubber hose on my new manifold from that to that. That should be fine. The throttle body adapter I ordered isn't going to work for me. It's tapered from 92 millimeter to 75 or whatever, but I want it to go from 92 to 92 from my 3-bolt to my 4-bolt. So I'm going to come up with something new to do. And what I'm thinking is I'm going to tap new holes in this. Just screw it right in. With the bottom right screw already attached, this thing lines up pretty good. It's pretty flush right here. and right here, and right here to drill new holes. If I were to try to use the existing left hole, it'd be too far to the right. Hey, Rugby, guess what? See that hole right there? I just drilled and tapped that hole. Yay. First time for me. I feel accomplished. I just bolted a 4-bolt throttle body to a 3-bolt manifold. If you know how to use a drill and you can twist your hand like this, then you could probably do it too. I reused that screw there, that hole, which means the whole throttle body is slightly offset to the left, a few millimeters. I'm going to bore that out on the manifold inside there to match the throttle body. So I'm going to hold this open and put a marker in there and mark the hole. I am boring. This tube is facing forward on the new throttle body. It turns the other way on the stock one. I don't think I can move this. It's really sturdy in there. So I think I'm just going to have to extend the tube out to come and loop around. Might look weird, but I don't think I have any other option. This is a rubbing I took of the front of my intake manifold so I can create a custom gasket. I'm just going to cut that out. I have this generic gasket material. And then I'll have a perfect gasket. I have removed the air lid and throttle body. I unplugged all the electrical connectors and set them aside. And set some hoses aside. And I unbolted the fuel rail. And I unplugged the fuel connector with this thing. Stick it on there like that, push it into the hole, and then the thing comes off. You gotta kind of wiggle with it. So I'm ready to pull that fuel rail off and see if it fits my new intake manifold. There's the fuel rail. It's leaking fuel. It has a little bracket thing that connected right to this that held the cables in place. Other than that, it wasn't too hard. It looks like all the injectors and all the hookups would line up correctly. The problem is this thing. It gets in the way right there, and I can't get it down in. So I don't think there's any way to edit this. I think I have to get new fuel rails. Crud. I can't get a socket on that back bolt because of my transmission stick. That's right. Automatic, baby. Luxury. Don't hate. I'm going to have to use a wrench. I'm joking about the automatic. I wish it was a manual. But I'm going to get that wrench down in there. Get that bolt off. I'm going to have to tape these bolts up because I can't pull them out. There's not enough room to pull them out. I'll have to tape them up so that they don't drag when I pull out the manifold. There is some kind of a bracket on those back 2 bolts there. Something connected to it, I think. I have to make sure that's off before I pull this out. And when I pull it out, you're supposed to pull it straight up so that you can clear the old pressure sensor back there. If you pull it straight out, you'll break it, or you'll break the little lip thing that's on the map sensor. So you gotta be careful back there. I have to unplug this brake booster tube that connects to the back of the manifold. I'll probably connect it right from the brake booster, then fish out the tube because I can't reach back there. And then there's the one other tube, and there's one electrical connector to the map sensor back there once I pull it out a little bit. So, that's my next step. Right, Rugby? What you doing? It's raining. Go play. So the truth is, the only reason I'm doing this entire project is to gain access to this thing right here, which is the oil pressure sensor. It has been bad ever since I bought the car, 15 years ago. Now I'm finally getting around to fixing it. Here's the new sensor, which I assembled in Mexico many years ago. That's a joke. I needed a really deep socket for the oil pressure sensor. It's a 1 1/16 inch. This one fits for 1 inch and 1 1/16 inch. And the sensor is 2 5/8 inches deep. So this fits around it. This particular part number, it's OEM 25254. I found this on Amazon. Couldn't find it at Advanced Autos or AutoZone. But yep, that's what you need. Here's the stock LS1 air intake manifold. It had these clips things holding different tubes down. This, I think, was on this side. Held the tube down. This one too. This, I believe, was right here holding something. This bracket was right here. It didn't really hold anything. It just had a wire clipped to it. It didn't need to be there. The aftermarket intake does not have this stuff. So I have to figure out how to hook it up without everything dangling around. The big thing is back here. I need this map sensor to get it off of here and then stick it on the back of the new one. Right there, it's a little tube, vacuum tube goes there, and this one is the big one that goes to the brake booster. And those two things will, on the new one, will have a little T inlet thing right there they both connect to. Yep. Through guess and test, this hole requires an M3.5 times 10 screw. Now, I don't know how long I need because I don't have the map sensor off yet. But once I get it, then I'll see if the screw is long enough or not. And I will have to put some thread seal tape stuff on the threads. Yep. I got the manifold absolute pressure sensor off. I do not see a place for a little screw like what I'm supposed to do for the back of the new manifold. Maybe I need a special map sensor, or maybe I need a special bracket. So, don't know. I designed a bracket to hold the map sensor in. This little piece of metal. It's a little flimsy. I might remake one out of a stronger material. But that just should help keep that in place. So this brake booster tube is bigger than what it's supposed to connect to. So I have this little piece of tube left over from the evac thing I did. That'll connect to that. I'll get some kind of adapter to connect this to each other. It's 3/8 to a half. These cheapo fuel rails fit really good. I didn't have to customize any brackets or anything. I replaced all the O-rings on the fuel injectors. I got this pack that came with brown and blue. I used the blue. They were fatter and fit better. And I made sure they were lubricated and got them in there. I'm going to put this tube on the back. Sometimes you see them on the front. But I have this tube coming out here. I'm going to have this tube coming out here. I have too much stuff happening up there. So I'm going to put it in the back. Problem back here, though, is this 90-degree fitting right here. kind of gets in the way of this. It would have to go over it. But then it's probably going to be contending with the transmission dipstick that comes right here. So I ordered one of these that's at an angle instead of 90, like a 45-degree angle. That way I can go around it, behind it, instead of over it. So that there's room for the dipstick there. I installed all my little fittings, made sure I put some seal tape in there. Got my 3/8 to 1/2 inch adapter in there, put the clamp on there. This side I didn't bolt down yet because what I want to do is have a 90-degree fitting come out here for the fuel connect. It'll be a 3/8 inch quick connect male and go into this 8AN hole right there. Orb, not the swivel flange. So I ordered a special one for that. A couple different options with adapters and things I can do. We'll see what fits. See if I have enough room in there anyway. If I don't, I can always connect a few up to this. I could put, right here's a quick connect male to the 8AN orb. That could go right there. Or I could get a tube, comes out, then connects that way. This bracket holds the cables down. It's going to go right there. Got the throttle body on. Fits good. Looks good in there. Looks okay anyway. Got this bracket on. I'll put washers on this because it felt like the screws weren't able to go in all the way. They were getting pretty tight. But there we go. What do you think? Underneath the manifold on top of the motor, there are steam port tubes that run underneath the manifold and connect these four corners of the motor. They're called steam ports. This is the steam port bypass assembly. It'll connect two fronts together and bypass the back, and it will bypass the line that actually connects from the throttle body here. And I'm going to cap off where the radiator is for that tube instead of connecting those two tubes. And the back is just plugs. The theory is the motor is angled and the front sits up higher, so not as much steam will come out of the back, so that's not very important back there. But I'm going to install this. It'll give me more room to put my manifold. Hey, look at it. He's smiling and he's got dimples. I replaced the steam port tubes that ran along the valley here with this bypass. I kept the stock bolt here because it has this, it looks like a ground wire that connects to it. So I want to make sure I don't mess anything up. And next thing I'm doing is replacing each one of these bolts that stick up kind of high with this kind. And I'm going to do one at a time and do a crisscross pattern. Go boom, 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 probably. 106 inch-pounds, I think. So not very many foot-pounds. And 18 foot-pounds there. New valley cover bolts that are low profile, necessary for this project for fitment issues. Apparently people have tried to put manifolds on, I don't know if just this one or many other ones, but and then they wouldn't fit because the existing nuts stuck up too high and it wouldn't be able to go on. So I got those. You gotta do some research in life. I'm not going to use those washers because why? Just gonna make it sit higher. It's ready to install. I want the fuel to come in from the side here, but I don't know if there's room for this there because valve cover, connectors, all kinds of stuff might be in the way right there. So if this doesn't work, I'll take this off, cap that, bring the fuel in there. I put a little bit of silicone just in the corners to hold the gasket on there so it doesn't flop around. So I did that a while ago, so it's dry and should be keeping the gasket in place. So yeah, I'm about to put it on. I'm going to hold this thing up here like this to clear the old pressure sensor that sits back there. Then I'll just take this and loop back around where it goes. Yep. Here goes nothing. I forgot to take these bolts and put them in the back and tape them up. But I found out that they'll still fit because they're shorter and this sits lower. So the ones in the I can just go ahead and put it in. I don't have to pull this back out. That's luck for you. Oh, this is insane. The stock intake manifold torque specs for an LS1 is 2-pass with 44 and 89. This is according to Haynes Repair Manual. And then the pattern is shown here, even though that's not the LS1 motor, but there's your pattern. I don't know why this book doesn't actually show the correct motor in it, but that's the specs we get. If I'm not mistaken, that is the truck motor. Now, the spec was based on a plastic manifold with rubber gasket. I'm using an aluminum intake with composite gasket. So I think I'm going to take that spec for the torque and increase it a little bit from 89 inch-pounds, might go up to 12 foot-pounds. I pulled these fuel rails back off so I can get to these bolts. By the time I got to the second pass on torquing them, they were pretty much all loose. So I'm going to do a third pass up to my 12 foot-pound instead of the 89 inch-pound. Valve covers have little dips in them, and my little loop-de-loop that comes from my fuel rail fits right in that little dip. How did that happen so perfectly? When I pushed the manifold back, the map sensor slipped off and I had to put that back on, which was very difficult. But I'm hoping when that happened, the one vacuum hose that was back there also didn't slip off. I can't verify that it's on. I tried, put my little mirror back there, but I can't really see it. So, I don't know. I hope that is still on there. When I first put the manifold on top of the motor, it didn't seem to fit flush on it. And I believe that was because of the pads that I put underneath of the manifold. And they were just kind of in a way. And that they could just smush down when I bolted it down. Which seems to be true because I bolted everything down and the manifold seems to look like it's flush on top of the motor now. And every corner, it looks pretty good. And now I have everything connected. Got my fuel line connected there. I hope everything on the fuel line is tight enough or not too tight to break O-rings. But everything's put together. I put some heat shield tape around the fuel line just to try to keep it cool. Put some heat shield tape around that thing too, which is part of the EGR system. So its exhaust fumes would be really hot. So just try to keep the heat down inside here a little bit. Did some other places. So And then I put my air lid on. Just got a couple connectors. Plug the battery back up. And then see if it'll start. And see if it won't catch fire. So that's where we're at. Well, I'm done. I'm done with my project. I installed that intake manifold and the oil pressure sensor and those fuel rails, and got some new fuel fittings and put some heat tape around some things and reinstalled everything back together and started it up, and it runs fine so far. I only started it a couple times, haven't driven it yet, but I completed a task that usually only professional mechanics can do.